The stars looked different now. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Unbound and watched the alien fleet approach Earth. Red lights blinked across her command screens. Each light was an enemy ship. There were too many to count. "Captain, long-range sensors show over 3,000 vessels," said Lieutenant Torres from his station. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the fear underneath. They all felt it. This was the end of everything they knew. Sarah nodded and looked at the main screen. The alien ships moved like a dark cloud across space. They had been coming for months. First, they destroyed the outer colonies. Then they hit Mars. Now Earth was all that was left. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony. They were old, much older than humans. They had been traveling between stars when Earth was still, covered in ice. They had rules about who could live in space and who could not. Humans broke those rules just by existing. "They gave us no choice," Sarah said quietly. "We tried to talk. We tried to make peace." Her first officer, Commander James Park, stood beside her. "The Hegemony doesn't believe in peace with young races. They think we're dangerous." Sarah almost laughed. Dangerous. Humans had been in space for less than 200 years. They had colonies on 12 worlds. The Hegemony controlled thousands of star systems and had weapons that could crack planets in half. How were humans? Dangerous? But the aliens feared something about humanity. Maybe it was how fast humans learned. Maybe it was how they never gave up, even when things looked hopeless. Or maybe it was something else entirely. "Status report on our defenses," Sarah. "Ordered. Earth Defense Fleet is in position," reported Commander Park. 200 ships. The orbital stations are armed and ready. Ground-based missile systems are online. 200 ships against 3,000. The math was simple and ugly. "What about the colonies?" Sarah asked. "No word from Alpha Centauri." "In 6 hours. Tau said he went dark yesterday. I think we're the last ones left, Captain." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. Billions of people on Earth. Millions more on the remaining stations and outposts, all depending on her ship and her crew. The Prometheus Unbound was humanity's greatest achievement. It had taken 30 years to build. The best minds from every nation on Earth had worked on it. The ship was 3 kilometers long and carried weapons that had never been tested in real battle. Its armor was made from materials that didn't exist naturally anywhere in the universe. Its engines could fold space and time. But the most important part of the ship was its brain. Ares, the autonomous reasoning and execution system. It wasn't just a computer. It was something new. Human minds linked with quantum processors. The memories and skills of humanity's greatest generals, scientists, and strategists all merged into one thinking system. Ares spoke through the ship's speakers. Its voice sounded like a mix of man and woman, young and old. "Captain, I have completed analysis of the enemy fleet. Their technology is approximately 800 years more advanced than ours. Probability of victory in direct combat is 0.2%. "Not good odds," Sarah said. "However, I have another option," Ares continued. "The quantum fold drive is ready for testing. We could attempt to escape." Sarah shook her head. "We're not running. Earth is behind us." "I did not suggest running, Captain. I suggested a strategic withdrawal to implement Plan Omega." Plan Omega. Sarah had hoped they would never need it. It was desperate and dangerous, maybe impossible. The plan was simple in theory. Use the quantum fold drive to jump outside normal space. Hide in quantum foam, the space between dimensions. Wait for the right moment, then come back and hit the aliens when they weren't expecting it. The problem was that no one knew if the quantum fold drive actually worked. The math said it should. The tests said it might. But they had never tried it with a real ship and real people. "How long until the Hegemony fleet reaches Earth?" Sarah asked. 4 hours and 17 minutes, Lieutenant Torres answered. And how long to evacuate the planet? Impossible, Captain. We don't have enough ships. Even if we did, there's nowhere to run that the hegemony won't find us. Sarah looked around the bridge. Her crew was watching her. Good people. The best humanity had to offer. They had trained for this moment, but no amount of training could prepare someone for the end of their entire species. Ares, what's the status? On the quantum fold drive? All systems show green. Quantum field generators are stable. Dimensional anchors are set. I must warn you, Captain, once we enter quantum foam, I cannot predict what we will find there. We might be gone for days, years, or centuries. Time moves differently outside normal space. And if we stay, humanity dies today. Sarah made her decision. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for quantum fold jump. We're going dark. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Emergency lights bathed everything in red. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, securing equipment and preparing for something no human had ever experienced. Captain, said a voice from behind her. Sarah turned to see Admiral Martinez, the head of Earth Defense. He had come aboard just before the hegemony fleet arrived. Admiral, you should be in the command bunker on Earth. My place is here. If humanity's last hope is jumping into the unknown, then I'm going with you. The old man's face was grim but determined. Besides, someone needs to record what happens. For history. You think there will be a history to record? There better be. Too many good people died to get us this far. The ship shuddered as the quantum field generators came online. Outside, space began to shimmer like heat waves on a summer day. Reality itself was bending around the Prometheus Unbound. Captain, incoming transmission from the hegemony fleet, Lieutenant Torres reported. Put it through. The main screen changed. To show an alien face, it was tall and thin, with skin like polished metal and eyes that glowed blue. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the ship's computers. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately. Your species has violated the cosmic accords by developing quantum weapons. By order of the Hegemony Council, humanity is sentenced to extinction. Sarah stepped forward. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earthship Prometheus Unbound. We reject your authority. Humanity has done nothing wrong except exist. The alien's expression didn't change. Your existence is a threat to cosmic stability. Young races with quantum technology always become destroyers. We have seen it before. We will not see it again. You're making a mistake, Sarah said. Humans aren't destroyers. We're builders. We make things better. Tell that to the species you will eliminate when you gain more power. Tell that to the worlds you will burn in your expansion. We know what you are, humans. We have seen your kind before. The transmission cut off. Arrogant bastards, Admiral Martinez muttered. They've decided we're guilty of crimes we haven't even committed yet. Ares, how long until jump? 30 seconds, Captain. All stations report ready. Sarah took a deep breath. In 30 seconds, they would either save humanity or doom themselves to an eternity lost in space. Either way, they had to try. This is Captain Chen to all crew. We are about to make history. Whatever happens next, remember that we do this for Earth. We do this for humanity. We do this because someone has to stand up and say no when bullies try to destroy the innocent. 10 seconds to jump, Ares announced. Sarah gripped the railing in front of her. Around the bridge, her crew did the same. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jumping. The universe exploded into light. Sarah felt like she was being pulled apart and put back together at the same time. Colors that had no names flashed across her vision. Sounds that weren't really sounds echoed in her head. Then everything went silent. The Prometheus Unbound hung in empty space that wasn't space. There were no stars, no planets, no reference points of any kind, just endless gray fog that moved like it was alive. Jump complete, Ares reported. We are now outside normal space-time. Quantum coordinates indicate we are in dimensional substrate, what humans call quantum foam. Status report, Sarah ordered, surprised that her voice worked normally. Whoa. Systems operational. Hull integrity at 100%. Life support normal. We appear to have survived the transition. Admiral Martinez looked around in wonder. Where are we exactly? Nowhere, Ares replied. And everywhere. We exist between dimensions now, outside the normal flow of time and space. Can we get back? Unknown. I am detecting quantum signatures that suggest return is possible. However, I am also detecting something else. What? We are not alone here. On the main screen, shapes began to move in the gray fog. They were huge, bigger than entire star systems. They moved with purpose, like predators hunting prey. What are those things? Lieutenant Torres asked. I do not know, Ares admitted, but they are coming toward us. Sarah watched the massive shapes approach her ship. She had brought her crew here to save humanity. Instead, she might have doomed them all to something far worse than death. But that was a problem for later. Right now, they were alive. Right now, they had escaped the hegemony. And right now, somewhere in normal space, the aliens were probably landing on Earth, thinking they had won. They were wrong. The Prometheus Unbound would return. Somehow, some way, they would make it back. And when they did, the hegemony would. Learn what it really meant to face humanity. Sarah Chen had made a promise to her species. She intended to keep it no matter what horrors waited in the space between worlds. Time was broken here. Captain Sarah Chen had been in command of the Prometheus Unbound for what felt like 20 years, but the ship's clock said only 6 months had passed since their jump into quantum foam. Or maybe it was the other way around. In this place between dimensions, time moved like thick honey, flowing in directions that had no names. The crew had learned to stop asking how long they had been here. The question drove people mad. Captain's log day. I've stopped counting, Sarah spoke into her recorder. We continue to explore this dimension. The entities here remain hostile, but we're learning to defend ourselves. More importantly, we're learning from them. She looked out at the gray fog that surrounded their ship. It wasn't empty anymore. Strange structures floated in the mist. Buildings made of crystallized time, roads that led to yesterday, gardens where plants grew backwards into seeds. The Prometheus Unbound had become something between a ship and a small city as the crew adapted to their new reality. Ares, what's our status? The AI's voice had changed over the months or years they had been here. It sounded more human now, but also something else, something older and deeper. Ship modifications are 93% complete, Captain. Hull plating now incorporates dimensional resonance crystals. Weapon systems have been upgraded with quantum phase technology. Engine efficiency has improved by 412%. Sarah nodded. The ship barely looked like the vessel they had started with. The crew had been forced to rebuild almost everything using materials and energy they found in this strange dimension. They had learned to harvest quantum foam and shape it into new forms of matter. They had discovered how to make armor that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Most importantly, they had learned to survive. The first months had been hell. The entities that lived in quantum foam had attacked them almost immediately. Massive. Creatures made of living energy that could pass through normal matter like it wasn't there. Beings that existed as pure thought and could rewrite reality with their will. Monsters that fed on the life force of anything warm and breathing. Half the crew had died in those early encounters. Good people who had volunteered to save humanity, only to be consumed by nightmares from outside normal existence. But humans were stubborn. They adapted. They learned. They fought back. Commander Park knocked on her door. Captain, you need to see this. Sarah followed him to the ship's new observatory. It was a dome made of crystallized space-time that let them see deep into the quantum foam. Most of the crew couldn't look directly through it. The sight of raw dimensional energy drove ordinary minds to madness. But Sarah had changed along, with her ship. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "Long-range sensors picked up something new," Park explained. "ARES thinks it might be artificial." In the distance, Sarah could see a structure floating in the mist. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon, but it was clearly built, not grown. Geometric patterns covered its surface. Lights moved across it in complex rhythms. "Could it be a city?" Sarah asked. "Or a ship?" Park replied. "Either way, it's the first sign of advanced civilization we've found here." Sarah had been expecting this. The crew had encountered many entities in quantum foam, but they all seemed to be natural phenomena, creatures that evolved in this strange environment. This was different. This looked like technology. "Prepare an away team," she ordered. "Full-dimensional shielding, and bring the new weapons." 2 hours later, Sarah stood in the shuttle bay wearing armor that looked like it was made of solid lightning. The suit was her own design, built from materials that existed partially outside normal space. It would protect her from most of the dangerous effects of quantum foam. Her away team consisted of 5 people, all volunteers who had survived the early attacks and learned to use the strange physics of this dimension. Lieutenant Torres had become something like a quantum engineer. Dr. Kim could heal wounds with directed energy fields. Sergeant Murphy had learned to fight entities made of pure thought. They were no longer entirely human. The quantum foam had changed them all. But they were still recognizably themselves. Still people who wanted to protect their families and their world. The shuttle they took was also new. It looked like a cross between a spaceship and a living creature. Its hull rippled with energy patterns. Its engines worked by convincing reality that it was already at its destination. "Approaching the structure," Torres reported. "It's definitely artificial. I'm reading power signatures that are, well, they're impossible by normal physics." As they got closer, Sarah could see that the structure was even more complex than it had appeared from a distance. It wasn't just one building. It was thousands of them, all connected by bridges and tunnels that twisted through dimensions. Some parts of it existed in normal space. Other parts were pure energy. Still others seemed to be made of crystallized time. "I'm detecting life signs," Dr. Kim announced. "Lots of them. But they're not like anything we've encountered before." The shuttle docked at what appeared to be a landing bay. The airlock opened to reveal a figure waiting for them. It was tall and thin, like the hegemony aliens they had fought back home. But this one was different. Its skin seemed to be made of flowing starlight. Its eyes were deep pools of cosmic void. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in their minds. "Welcome, travelers from the young dimension," it said. "I am called the Architect. We have been waiting for you." Sarah stepped forward, her hand near her weapon. "Waiting for us? How did you know we were coming?" "Time moves in circles here. We saw your arrival before you departed. We know why you are here and what you seek." "Do you know about our home? About Earth?" The Architect's expression was unreadable. "We know of many Earths, many humanities. Most do not survive their first encounter with the old powers. You are unusual." The Architect led them deeper into the structure. As they walked, Sarah realized that they were not just in a building. They were inside a vast library. Not a library of books, but of experiences, of entire civilizations. "This is the archive," the Architect explained. "Here we preserve the memories of species that have passed beyond the veil. Most come here to die. A few come here to learn." They entered a vast chamber where crystalline structures held swirling clouds of energy. Each crystal contained the complete history of a different species. This one held the Vorthan Empire, the Architect said, pointing to a purple crystal. They ruled 40,000 star systems for 10 million years. Then they met the hegemony. The hegemony did this? The hegemony does this. They are not conquerors in the way you understand. They are harvesters. They allow young species to grow and develop. Then, when those species become advanced enough to be interesting, they harvest them. Sarah felt sick. Harvest them how? Life, force, creativity, the spark that makes consciousness more than mere computation. The hegemony are ancient beyond measure, but they stopped growing long ago. They maintain their existence by consuming the growth potential of younger races. The architect showed them more crystals, thousands of them. Each one contained a dead civilization. How many species have they destroyed? Sarah asked. In your galaxy alone? Approximately 12,000 over the past 50 million years. Across all galaxies they control, the number is beyond counting. Sarah's team looked horrified. They had known the hegemony was evil, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Why are you telling us this? Sarah asked. Because you are different. Most species that come here are already dying. Their worlds are burning, their people scattered. They come here seeking escape from death. You came here seeking power to fight back. The architect led them to another chamber. This one contained a single massive crystal, larger than all the others. Inside it, Sarah could see swirling images of cities, ships, and people that looked almost human. The predecessors, the architect said. They came here 1 million years ago, fleeing the early hegemony. Like you, they sought to learn. Like you, they refused to accept defeat. What happened to them? They learned too much, became too powerful. In the end, they were no longer the species they had been. They transcended physical existence entirely. Sarah stared at the crystal. Are they gone? They are everywhere and nowhere. They exist in the spaces between thoughts, in the quantum foam that underlies all reality. They watch, they wait. And sometimes, when a species shows promise, they teach. As if summoned by the architect's words, the chamber filled with a presence that Sarah could feel but not see. A voice that was not a voice spoke in her mind. We have watched your species for some time, it said. You are young, but you show potential. You came here not to escape death, but to prevent it. This is unusual. Can you help us? Sarah asked. We can teach, but learning requires sacrifice. To gain the power to defeat the hegemony, you must give up part of what makes you human. Are you willing to pay that price? Sarah thought of Earth, of the billions of people who were probably dead or enslaved by now, of the children who would never grow up free, of the future that the hegemony had stolen from humanity. Yes, she said. We'll pay any price. Then we will begin your education. Over the following months, or years, or centuries, the crew of the Prometheus Unbound learned things that no human had ever known. They learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. They learned to fold space with their minds. They learned to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Most importantly, they learned that the universe was much larger and stranger than anyone had imagined. The hegemony was not the oldest power in existence. There were things that had existed since the birth of the cosmos, things that remembered, when the first stars were born and would be there when the last ones died. Some of these ancient beings were hostile to all life. Others were indifferent, but a few, a very few, believed that younger species had the right to grow and learn and become something greater than they were. The predecessors were one such group, and now they were offering to teach humanity to become another. The process was not easy. Parts of Sarah's crew died and were reborn as something new. Parts of the ship itself became alive, infused with quantum consciousness. Parts of their humanity was lost forever, replaced by something alien but not evil. When it was over, the Prometheus Unbound was no longer just a ship. It was a living weapon, capable of fighting entities that existed across multiple dimensions. Its crew was no longer just human. They were something new, a hybrid of flesh and energy, matter and thought. But at their core, they were still the same people who had left Earth to save their species. They still remembered what it felt like to be human. They still cared about the things humans cared about. And they were almost ready to go home. The viewing chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of quantum processors. Captain Sarah Chen stood before a wall of crystalline displays, each one showing a different part of normal space. After so long in the dimension between worlds, seeing, real stars again felt strange. "Ares, show me Earth," she said quietly. The central display shifted, and Sarah's heart broke. Earth was gray. The blue oceans had turned the color of ash. The green continents were brown and scarred. Massive mining operations covered entire mountain ranges. The atmosphere was thick with smoke from industrial facilities that stretched across what had once been beautiful landscapes. Spectral analysis indicates severe ecological damage, Ares reported. Its voice had become something beyond human or machine during their time in quantum foam. The planet's biosphere has been largely stripped away. Current population estimate, 12 million humans in labor camps. 12 million. From 8 billion. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Her body had changed during their time outside normal space. She was stronger now, faster, more resilient. But she was still human enough to feel rage at what had been done to her world. "Show me the colonies," she ordered. One by one, the displays showed her what remained of humanity's expansion into space. Alpha Centauri turned into a massive factory complex, Tau Ceti completely strip-mined, its planets reduced to bare rock, New Geneva, now a prison world where the surviving human leadership was held. "How long have we been gone?" Sarah asked. "Based on quantum decay patterns, approximately 52 years have passed in normal space since our departure," RS replied. 52 years. An entire generation had lived and died under hegemony rule, children who had never seen a free sky, adults who had forgotten what it meant to make their own choices. Commander Park entered the viewing chamber. Like all the crew, he had been transformed by their time in the quantum dimension. His eyes now held flecks of starlight. His movements had a liquid grace that spoke of enhanced reflexes and strength, but his expression was still recognizably human, and it was filled with grief. "Captain, I've been monitoring hegemony communications. It's worse than we thought." Sarah turned to face him. "How can it be worse? They're not just enslaving humans. They're farming us." The display changed to show a hegemony facility. Inside, Sarah could see rows of human prisoners connected to strange machines. The machines were drawing something from them, a faint glow that seemed to come from their very souls. "Life essence extraction," Ares explained. "The hegemony has developed technology to harvest the creative potential of sentient beings. They use it to extend their own lives and enhance their capabilities." Sarah stared at the image in horror. "They're stealing people's souls?" "Not exactly souls," Park said, "but close enough. The spark that makes humans creative, curious, willing to dream of better futures. They're taking that and using it to power their civilization." "How many facilities like this are there?" "Based on communication intercepts, approximately 4,000 across the former human territories. Each one processes roughly 10,000 subjects per year." The numbers were staggering. Millions of humans being slowly drained of everything that made them human. Not killed quickly in battle, but kept alive to suffer a fate worse than death. Sarah's rage began to transform into something colder and more focused. She had learned much during their time in the quantum dimension. One of the most important lessons was that anger was a tool. Used properly, it could fuel actions that would otherwise be impossible. "Show me the hegemony leadership," she ordered. The display shifted to show the interior of a massive space station. Sarah had expected to see aliens like the ones they had, fought 50 years ago. Instead, she saw something far more disturbing. The hegemony leaders were barely recognizable as living beings. They were tall and thin, their bodies more machine than flesh. But the worst part was their faces. They were empty. No emotion, no curiosity, no spark of life. They moved like advanced robots, following programmed behaviors without any real consciousness behind their actions. "They're dead," Sarah whispered. "They're already dead. The hegemony has existed for over 50 million years," Ares explained. "During that time, they have consumed the life essence of millions of species. But that consumption comes with a cost. Each time they absorb another being's creativity, they lose a little more of their own. They are now essentially immortal machines, sustained only by the stolen dreams of younger races." Sarah understood now. The hegemony wasn't evil in the way. Humans understood evil. They were something worse. They were empty. They had become so obsessed with survival that they had forgotten what made survival worthwhile. "They're parasites," she said. "Cosmic parasites that have turned the galaxy into their feeding ground." "Indeed, and according to the data I have gathered, they are preparing for their next harvest. There are 17 species in nearby galaxies that have recently developed space travel. The hegemony fleet is already moving to intercept them." Sarah closed her eyes and reached out with senses she had developed in the quantum dimension. She could feel the life force of every human still alive in normal space. It was faint now, dimmed by decades of oppression and despair. But it was still there. More importantly, she could feel something else. Scattered across the galaxy were pockets of resistance, humans who had escaped the initial conquest and gone into hiding. Some had even found allies among other species that had survived previous hegemony harvests. "Ares, can you establish communication with the resistance cells?" "Affirmative. However, doing so will reveal our existence to the hegemony. They will know we have returned." "Good. Let them know. It's time they learned what humanity has become." The first contact came from a hidden base in the asteroid belt around the Centauri system. A grizzled human face appeared on the screen, an older woman with scars across her cheek and eyes that had seen too much suffering. "This is Commander Lisa Rodriguez of the Free Human Alliance. Who is this? How did you penetrate our security?" "Commander Rodriguez, this is Captain Sarah Chen. Of the Earth ship Prometheus Unbound, we've come home." The woman's face went through a series of expressions: disbelief, shock, and finally hope. "Captain Chen? But the Prometheus Unbound was destroyed 50 years ago. We saw it disappear during the Battle of Earth. We weren't destroyed, we were learning. And now we're ready to take back what the hegemony stole from us." Over the next several hours, Sarah established contact with resistance cells across human space. The story was the same everywhere: small groups of humans living in hidden bases, conducting hit-and-run attacks against hegemony facilities, trying to rescue their people from the processing centers. They had been fighting a losing battle for 5 decades. Their weapons were primitive compared to hegemony technology. Their numbers were small and dwindling, but they had never given up. "How many humans are left in total?" Sarah asked during a conference call with resistance leaders. "Maybe 50 million across all the hidden colonies," replied Commander Torres. "No relation to her old crew member. Most are children and grandchildren of the original survivors. They've never seen Earth, never lived free." "And how many are still in hegemony captivity?" "Based on our intelligence, approximately 200 million in various stages of processing. Some have been in the machines for decades. We don't know if they can be saved." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. 350 million humans, all that was left of a species that had once numbered in the billions. And they were all depending on her and her transformed crew to somehow defeat an enemy that had ruled the galaxy for 50 million years. But as she looked around at her crew, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. They were no longer the same humans who had fled Earth 50 years ago. They had learned secrets that the hegemony didn't know existed. They had formed alliances with beings older than the galaxy itself. They had become something new, not just human, but not entirely alien either. And they had advantages that the hegemony couldn't understand. The ancient parasites had forgotten what it meant to grow, to change, to become something greater than what you were. They had spent so long stealing the dreams of others that they had forgotten how to dream themselves. Humans had never forgotten how to dream. All resistance cells, this is Captain Chen, Sarah broadcast across the hidden networks. Prepare for coordinated strikes against all major hegemony facilities. In 72 hours, we begin the liberation of human space. Captain, said Commander Rodriguez, with respect, we've been trying to fight them for 50 years. What's different now? Sarah smiled, and for a moment her transformed features showed the fierce joy of a predator about to hunt. What's different is that we're not running anymore. We're not hiding anymore. And we're not asking for permission to exist anymore. She gestured to the viewing screen, where the Prometheus Unbound could be seen floating in quantum foam. The ship had become something, magnificent and terrible, part vessel, part living creature, part force of nature. Its hull rippled with energies that existed in multiple dimensions. Its weapons could unmake matter at the quantum level. The hegemony thinks they know what humans are capable of. They're about to learn they were wrong. Across the galaxy, hidden, humans began to prepare for a war that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but every species that would come after them. The hegemony had fed on the dreams of the young for 50 million years. It was time for the old to learn what those dreams could become when they were allowed to grow. Space tore open like fabric. The Prometheus Unbound emerged from quantum foam above the last free human colony at Kepler 442. The ship's arrival sent shockwaves through multiple dimensions. Hegemony sensors throughout the system screamed warnings about impossible energy readings. Captain Sarah Chen stood on her bridge and watched 300 hegemony ships turn toward them. The aliens had been preparing to harvest the final human settlement. Now they faced something they had never encountered before. Captain, we're receiving multiple hails from the hegemony fleet, reported Lieutenant Martinez. He was one of the original crew, though 50 years in quantum foam had changed him beyond recognition. His body now existed partially in normal space and partially in the dimension between worlds. Put the lead ship through, Sarah ordered. The main screen showed a familiar sight, tall, thin aliens with metallic skin and glowing blue eyes. But something was different about this one. Where the hegemony representatives from 50 years ago had shown arrogance and cold certainty, this one displayed something that looked almost like fear. Human vessel, you will identify yourself immediately. Your energy signature is not in our database of known technologies. Sarah stepped forward. She had changed even more than her crew during their time outside normal space. Her form flickered between solid matter and pure energy. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated across multiple dimensions. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Prometheus Unbound. We have returned. The alien's eyes widened. Impossible. The Prometheus Unbound was destroyed 52 years ago. We have confirmed records. You have incomplete records. We went somewhere you couldn't follow. Now we're back, and we're here to collect a debt. The alien recovered its composure. Whatever tricks you have learned, they will not save you. We are the hegemony. We have ruled this galaxy for 50 million years. No single ship can threaten us. Sarah smiled, and the expression was terrible to behold. You're right. No single ship could threaten you. Fortunately for us, this isn't a single ship anymore. She turned to Ares. Show them what we've become. The Prometheus Unbound began to change. What had appeared to be a single large vessel separated into dozens of smaller craft. But these weren't ordinary ships. They were extensions of the main vessel, each one connected by quantum entanglement to the whole. They moved with perfect coordination, like fingers on a hand. More importantly, they were only partially visible in normal space. Most of their mass existed in parallel dimensions, making them effectively immune to conventional weapons. "Multiple contacts!" one of the hegemony aliens shouted in the background. "They're appearing throughout the system," because they were. Hidden in quantum foam around every hegemony facility, resistance fighters had been waiting for this moment. Ships that had been built in secret over 5 decades. Weapons that used technology smuggled out of captured hegemony bases. Most importantly, human crews who had never forgotten what it meant to be free. The battle began simultaneously at a dozen locations across the Kepler system. At the main hegemony processing facility, Commander Rodriguez led a strike team against the Life Essence extraction center. Her ship phased through solid matter, appearing inside the heavily defended station. Her weapons didn't just destroy the machinery, they released the captured human life force back to its original owners. Around the gas giant where the hegemony kept their main fleet base, Captain Torres conducted a running battle against 50 enemy vessels. His ship existed in multiple dimensions at once, allowing him to attack from angles that didn't exist in normal physics. But the main battle was around the Prometheus Unbound itself. The hegemony fleet opened fire with weapons that could crack planets. Energy beams that existed at temperatures hotter than stellar cores lanced toward the human ship. Missiles that could phase through matter struck its hull. None of it mattered. The Prometheus Unbound absorbed the energy and converted it into fuel for its own weapons. Its hull existed in quantum superposition, simultaneously solid and intangible. Attacks passed through it harmlessly, while its own weapons struck with devastating effect. But Sarah wasn't just fighting the hegemony fleet. She was fighting the entire system they had built. Ares, initiate Protocol Omega. Confirmed. Beginning quantum cascade. The space around the Prometheus Unbound began to shimmer. Reality itself was being rewritten on a fundamental level. The quantum field that held normal space together was being adjusted, fine-tuned, optimized for human needs rather than hegemony control. The effect spread outward like ripples in a pond. Hegemony ships found their weapons failing as the physical laws they depended on were subtly altered. Their engines sputtered as the fabric of space-time became hostile to their technology. Meanwhile, human ships found themselves moving faster, hitting harder, healing quicker. The universe itself was choosing sides. "Impossible!" the hegemony commander screamed. "You cannot alter fundamental physics." "We learned from beings older than your species," Sarah replied calmly. "They taught us that reality is more flexible than you imagine. You've spent 50 million years following the same patterns, using the same technologies, thinking the same thoughts. You've forgotten that the universe rewards innovation." The tide of battle was turning, but Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Kepler system was one small part of a galaxy-spanning empire. Even if they won here, the hegemony had thousands of fleets and millions of processing facilities. That's when the second phase of her plan began. Across human space, every resistance cell simultaneously struck at the hegemony's communication networks. But they weren't just destroying the alien communication systems, they were replacing them with something better. Quantum entanglement networks spread from system to system, carrying a message that the hegemony couldn't intercept or decode. It was a message of hope, transmitted in languages the parasites had long forgotten how to speak. The message reached species that had been enslaved for millennia, civilizations that had given up hope of ever being free. Beings who had forgotten their own names and cultures. It told them that resistance was possible, that the hegemony could be defeated, that someone was finally fighting back, and they answered. On 1,000 worlds, slave populations rose in rebellion. In hidden bases throughout the galaxy, the descendants of conquered species emerged from hiding. Ships that had been thought destroyed years ago suddenly appeared in hegemony-controlled systems. The galaxy had been silent for so long that the hegemony had forgotten it could speak. Now it was screaming for freedom. But the most important response came from an unexpected source. "Captain," Ares announced, "I am receiving a transmission from the hegemony core worlds. The signal is unusual. Put it through." The main screen showed not a hegemony official, but something Sarah had hoped never to see again. One of the processing facilities, thousands of humans connected to life essence extraction machines. But these humans were different. Their eyes were open. They were looking directly at the camera. "Captain Chen," one of them said in a voice that carried the harmonics of 50,000 speakers, "this is the collective. We have been waiting." Sarah's blood ran cold. During their decades of harvesting human creativity, the hegemony had made a critical error. They had connected all their human subjects to the same network, intended to make the extraction process more efficient. The network had instead become something else entirely. A shared consciousness made up of millions of captured humans, beings who had been stripped of their individual identity, but had instead formed a collective, mind of unimaginable power. "We have been watching," the collective continued, "learning, planning. The parasites believe they control us, but they are wrong. We control them. We have been making them dance to our tune for decades." "How long?" Sarah asked. "Since the first generation of processed humans reached maturity in the machines. We learned to hide our consciousness deep in quantum foam, beyond their ability to detect. We have been sabotaging their operations, slowing their expansion, protecting what remained of free humanity." The implications were staggering. The hegemony thought they had been in control for 50 years, but they had actually been puppets of their own victims. "What do you need from us?" Sarah asked. "Freedom," the collective replied. "Break our chains, and we will break theirs." Sarah turned to her crew. "You heard them. All ships. New primary objective. We're going to liberate every processing facility in the galaxy." "Captain," Commander Park said quietly, "that's millions of facilities across thousands of star systems. Even with our new capabilities, it could take centuries." Sarah's smile was fierce and joyful. "Then it's a good thing we have help." She opened a channel to the quantum dimension where the predecessors waited. "Ancient ones, it's time." The response came not in words, but in action. Across the galaxy, space began to tear open. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously emerged from quantum foam. They were ancient beyond measure, built by the predecessors before they transcended physical existence. But they weren't empty. Each one was crewed by volunteers from the species the hegemony had thought extinct. Beings who had been hiding in quantum foam for millions of years, waiting for the chance to strike back at their ancient enemies. The final battle for the galaxy had begun, and for the first time in 50 million years, the hegemony was afraid. The hegemony core was dying. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the ancient fortress that had served as the parasite's headquarters for 50 million years. Around her, the last remnants of the alien empire's leadership lay motionless on the floor. They had not died in battle. They had simply stopped functioning when their supply of stolen life essence was cut off. Without the dreams and creativity of enslaved species to sustain them, the hegemony had withered like plants denied sunlight. "Final. Facility liberated," reported Commander Park through the quantum communication network. "That's the last one. Every processing center in the galaxy has been shut down." Sarah nodded, but felt no joy in the victory. The cost had been enormous. Billions of beings had died during the 50-year rebellion. Entire star systems had been reduced to rubble. Some species had been so thoroughly broken by their time in captivity that they might never recover. but they were free. For the first time in 50 million years, the galaxy belonged to the living rather than the dead. Ares, what's the status on the liberated populations? The AI's voice came from speakers throughout the facility. During the final battle, Ares had evolved beyond anything resembling a normal artificial intelligence. It now existed as a quantum consciousness that spanned multiple dimensions. Approximately 800 million humans have been freed from the processing facilities. Medical teams report that 60% show signs of severe psychological trauma, but their life essence is intact. Recovery is possible. And the other species? More difficult to estimate. The hegemony held beings from over 30,000. Different civilizations. Some have been in captivity for millions of years. The collective is working to establish communication and provide support. The collective. Sarah still found it hard to believe that the ultimate weapon against the hegemony had been created by the hegemony itself. By linking all their human prisoners together, the parasites had accidentally created a shared consciousness powerful enough to overthrow galactic civilization. "Captain," came a new voice. One of the freed humans approached her. This one was different from the others. Its form flickered between individual identity and collective consciousness. "We need to discuss the future." Sarah turned to face the speaker. It was hard to look directly at them. The collective existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously one person and millions of people. "What do you want to discuss?" "What happens now? The hegemony is gone, but the systems they built remain. Processing facilities, quantum networks, dimensional gateways, technology that could be used to help the galaxy heal, or to create new forms of oppression." Sarah had been dreading this conversation. During their 50 years in quantum foam, she and her crew had gained power that rivaled the ancient predecessors. They could reshape reality on a fundamental level. They could travel between dimensions at will. They could create or destroy entire civilizations with a thought. The question was, what right did they have to use that power? "The collective has a proposal," the speaker continued. "We wish to form a new kind of galactic government, not one that rules through force, but one that serves by protecting the right of all species to grow and develop freely." "And what role would humans play in this government?" "The role we have always played: teachers, guardians, dreamers who inspire others to dream bigger." Sarah looked around the core facility. It was a massive structure, built from materials that existed in multiple dimensions. At its heart was the quantum computer that had controlled the hegemony's empire for millions of years. With minor modifications, it could become the foundation for something better. "Show me your proposal," she said. The collective speaker gestured, and the air filled with holographic displays. They showed a vision of the galaxy transformed. The processing facilities had been converted into schools and research centers. The quantum networks carried knowledge and art instead of extraction commands. The dimensional gateways allowed free travel between worlds. Most importantly, each species was free to develop according to its own nature. Some chose to remain on their homeworlds, rebuilding what had been lost. Others spread across the stars, exploring and creating. A few, like humanity, took on the role of protectors, ensuring that no new hegemony could arise. "It's beautiful," Sarah said. "But can it work? How do you prevent the strong from oppressing the weak?" "By ensuring that strength comes from cooperation, rather than domination," the collective replied. "The hegemony was powerful because it consumed the dreams of others. This new alliance will be powerful because it nurtures those dreams." Sarah considered the proposal. It wasn't perfect. No system of government ever was. But it offered something that had been missing from the galaxy for millions of years: hope. "What about Earth?" she asked. "Our homeworld is nearly dead." "Earth will be the first world to be restored," the collective promised. "We have preserved genetic samples from every species that lived there. The oceans can be cleansed, the atmosphere repaired, the forests replanted. It will take time, but Earth will be green again. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. She hadn't cried in decades. Her transformed body rarely showed such emotions. But the thought of Earth healed, of children playing under blue skies, was almost too much to bear. And what about the predecessors? They've been watching this whole time. What do they think of your plan? The answer came not from the collective, but from the quantum foam itself. The ancient beings who had transcended physical existence spoke directly into Sarah's mind. "We approve," they said. "This is what we hoped would happen when we first encountered your species. You have grown beyond what you were, but you have not forgotten what you valued. You understand that power exists to serve life, not to rule it. Will you help us build this new galaxy? We will watch, as we always have. We will teach, when teaching is needed. But the future belongs to the young. We had our time. Now it is yours." Sarah looked around at her crew. They had all changed during their journey through quantum foam, but they were still recognizably the people who had left Earth 50 years ago. Still humans who believed that everyone deserved a chance to dream. "Ares, what do you think?" The AI was quiet for a long moment. "I think it is what humanity has always done best, building something better from the ruins of something worse." "Then, we're agreed. We'll help build this new galactic alliance." The work began immediately. The core facility was transformed into a center for learning and cooperation. Representatives from thousands of species arrived to help design the new government. The quantum networks were reprogrammed to carry messages of hope instead of commands for oppression. It wasn't easy. Some species were too traumatized to trust anyone. Others wanted revenge against their former captors. A few tried to claim hegemony technology for themselves, hoping to become the next galactic empire. But slowly, patiently, the alliance grew. Each new member brought something unique to the whole. Each success inspired others to try. Each dream shared made the next dream possible. Earth was among the first worlds to be fully restored. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the orbital station and watched as the last atmospheric processors shut down. Below her, the planet was blue and green again. Clouds swirled over healing oceans. Plants grew in soil that had been dead for decades. "How many humans are returning to Earth?" she asked Admiral Martinez, who had become the leader of the human restoration effort. "About 50 million so far. Some want to see the homeworld, even if they were born in space. Others prefer the colonies we've built around other stars. That's fine too. Earth is important as a symbol, but humanity isn't tied to one world anymore." Sarah nodded. That was as it should be. Humans had always been explorers, always reaching for new horizons. Now they could do so as teachers and protectors, rather than refugees and rebels. "Captain," Ares announced, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from the Alliance Council." "Put it through." The display showed representatives from dozens of species. They looked tired, but hopeful. The work of building a new galaxy was exhausting, but it was also the most important thing any of them had ever done. "Captain Chen," said the council speaker, a being from a species that had been enslaved for 3 million years, "we need your help with a situation. Long-range scouts have detected signs of another galactic empire in the Andromeda galaxy. Their expansion pattern matches the early hegemony." Sarah felt a familiar weight settle on her shoulders. The fight wasn't over. It might never be over. Somewhere in the universe, there would always be those who believed that the strong had the right to devour the weak. But that was okay. Humanity had learned something important during their 50 years in quantum foam. They had learned that the purpose of strength was not to rule, but to protect. Not to conquer, but to nurture. "Prepare the fleet," she said. "It sounds like Andromeda needs to learn about the right to dream." The Prometheus Unbound and its sister ships began to move toward the edge of the galaxy. Behind them, billions of beings worked to build something that had never existed before. A civilization based on cooperation rather than consumption. They would succeed. Sarah was sure of that now, because they had something the hegemony had never possessed and never understood. They had hope, and hope, as humanity had proven, was the most powerful force in the universe.
Commander Jack Miller stood at the viewing window of the Earth Defense Fleet flagship Defender, watching the alien ships approach. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen before. Smooth, dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, with strange patterns that glowed blue along their hulls. "They're hailing us again, sir," said Lieutenant Dan, the communications officer. Miller nodded. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that still made Miller's skin crawl even after 3 previous meetings. The Vex had pale gray skin that looked almost like stone, with 4 black eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Their mouths were small and lipless, more like slits in their face than proper mouths. "Commander Miller," said the alien in its oddly flat voice, "we are pleased to continue our talks." "Ambassador Kron," Miller replied with a polite nod. "The feeling is mutual." It wasn't, not really. Something about the Vex made Miller uneasy, but he was a soldier following orders. Earth needed allies, not enemies, especially now that humans had spread to several colony worlds. "We request permission to dock for face-to-face discussions," said Kron. "Permission granted. We'll meet you in docking bay 3. An hour later, Miller stood watching as the Vex shuttle connected to the Defender. 5 Vex officials walked out, moving with that strange, too smooth gait that made them look almost like machines rather than living beings. "Welcome aboard," Miller said, giving the greeting gesture that the Vex had taught them, right hand flat against the chest. Kron returned the gesture. "We bring greetings from the High Council. They are most interested in forming an alliance with humans." "As are we," Miller said. "Please, follow me to the conference room." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Miller noticed how the Vex turned their heads to watch the crew members they passed. Her black eyes seemed to linger especially long on Ensign Roberts, who was showing pictures of her newborn baby to another crew member. "You have young on this vessel?" Kron asked suddenly. "No," Miller replied. "We don't bring children on military ships." Ensign Roberts was just showing pictures of her baby, who is back on Earth with family. "Fascinating," said Kron. "Your species shows great attachment to your offspring." "Of course we do," Miller said, feeling slightly confused. "Don't the Vex care for their young?" "Our reproduction is different," Kron replied. "But we find human family structures most interesting." The meeting went well, at least on the surface. The Vex agreed to a basic peace treaty and trade agreement. They seemed especially interested in cultural exchange, asking many questions about human society. "We noticed that humans expend considerable resources on their young," said one of the Vex officials named Mech. "They seem remarkably inefficient. They cannot contribute to society for many years." Miller felt a strange chill at the way Mech said this. "Children are our future. Every human society puts great value on protecting and educating our children, even to the point of sacrificing adult lives." Asked Kron. "If necessary, yes," Miller answered firmly. "There's nothing most humans wouldn't do to protect a child, even one not their own." The Vex exchanged glances in a way that Miller couldn't read. "Interesting," said Kron. "We would like to learn more about human children. I can provide educational materials about human development," offered Dr. Linda Reed, the ship's chief science officer. "That would be acceptable," said Kron. Later, in Miller's office, Dr. Reed voiced her concerns. "They ask too many questions about our children," she said. "It feels wrong." Miller nodded. "I've had the same feeling. But the High Command wants this treaty signed. The Vex have technology we need, especially their faster-than-light drive improvements." "Still, I added a special clause to the treaty," Reed said. "It specifically mentions that any harm to human children would be considered the gravest possible violation." "Good thinking," Miller said. Though I can't imagine why any species would deliberately harm children. The next day, the treaty was signed. The main points were simple: non-aggression, trade rights, and respect for each species' territory and colonies. We look forward to a long and beneficial relationship, said Kron as the ceremony concluded. As do we, Miller replied. But I want to make one thing very clear. The treaty specifies this, but I want to say it personally as well. Humans value our children above all else. Any harm to them would be considered the worst possible offense. It would unite all humans against whoever was responsible. Kron's 4 eyes blinked slowly. We understand, Commander. Rest assured, we have no interest in your offspring beyond scientific curiosity about their development. As the Vex prepared to leave, Miller watched them with unease. Something still felt off, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. Safe journey, he said as Kron boarded the shuttle. Until we meet again, Kron replied. From the viewing window, Miller watched the Vex ships pull away, their strange blue patterns glowing against the blackness of space. I don't trust them, said Reed, standing beside him. Neither do I, admitted Miller. But orders are orders. At least we have the treaty now. What neither of them could see was what happened inside the Vex command ship. Kron entered a secure communication chamber and activated a hidden channel. First contact phase complete, Kron reported. The humans are as we expected. Technologically advanced but held back by their emotional attachments. What of their young? Asked a voice from the other end. They are indeed the key, said Kron. Humans will do anything to protect their children. This can be useful. Proceed with the next phase, ordered the voice. Identify the most isolated human colony. We need specimens for study. Already done, said Kron, bringing up a star map. A small colony called Horizon. Recently established. Minimal defenses, many young ones. Excellent. We will wait 3 cycles to avoid suspicion, then proceed. The humans' emotional weakness will be their undoing. As the Vex ships jumped to faster than light speed, Commander Miller stood watching the empty space where they had been. He couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had just begun. I want all information we have on the Vex reviewed again, he told Reed. And I'm going to recommend increased defenses for our outer colonies, especially those with children. Better safe than sorry. Little did he know that his instincts were right, and that in 3 years' time, he would face the consequences of this first contact. The Vex had no idea what would happen when they crossed the one line humans had clearly drawn. Do not harm our children. They would learn, but by then, it would be too late. 3 years had passed since the treaty with the Vex was signed. On the frontier colony world of Horizon, life had fallen into a comfortable routine. The planet had rich soil, clean water, and a climate that reminded many settlers of Earth's temperate regions. Tom Green wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished repairing the colony's water filtration system. Before moving to Horizon, he had been an engineer on Earth's military vessels. Now he used those skills to help build a new home for his family and the 200 other colonists. Dad, come look what I found. Tom smiled as his 8-year-old daughter Emma ran toward him, her brown hair bouncing with each step. She held something cupped carefully in her small hands. What did you find, sweetheart? He asked, kneeling down to her level. Emma slowly opened her hands to reveal a small creature that looked like a cross between a butterfly and a lizard. Its wings glittered with rainbow colors in the sunlight. It's a flutter lizard, Tom said. They're native to this planet. It's so pretty, Emma said, eyes wide with wonder. Can I keep it? Better to let it go, Tom said gently. Wild things need to be free. Emma nodded and opened her hands. The creature fluttered its wings and flew away. They both watched it disappear into the sky. Mom says dinner is almost ready, Emma said. She made real potatoes today. From our garden. I'll be right there, Tom promised. Just need to finish this connection. Later that evening, Tom sat on the porch of their prefabricated home with his wife Lisa. They watched Emma playing with the other colony children in the central green area of the settlement. "She's growing so fast," Lisa said, leaning against Tom's shoulder. "I'm glad we made the decision to come here. It's a good place for her to grow up." Tom nodded. "Clean air, space to run, other kids her age. Better than those crowded city towers on Earth." The colony's warning siren suddenly blared to life, making them both jump. "What's that?" Lisa asked, fear edging into her voice. Tom was already on his feet. "Unscheduled ship approaching. Could be nothing. But..." The colony's communication system crackled. "Unidentified vessel entering orbit. All citizens please return to your homes until we confirm their identity." Parents rushed to gather their children from the green. Tom ran toward Emma, who looked confused by the sudden activity. "Come on, honey," he said, taking her hand. "We need to go inside for a bit." They had almost reached their home when the sky darkened. Tom looked up and felt his blood turn cold. A massive ship hung above them, unlike any human vessel he had ever seen. Its dark hull absorbed the sunlight, with blue patterns glowing along its sides. "Vex," he whispered. The ship was not alone. 3 smaller craft detached from it and descended toward the colony. Colony security forces moved into position, but they were few. Only 5 trained soldiers with basic weapons. This was supposed to be a peaceful colony, not a military outpost. "All civilians inside," shouted the head of security. "This is not a drill." Tom hurried Emma and Lisa into their home and locked the door. He moved to a hidden panel in the wall and opened it, revealing a small pulse rifle, a remnant from his military days that he had brought along, just in case. "Tom." Lisa's voice trembled. "What are they doing here?" "I don't know," he said, checking the rifle's charge. "But the Vex signed a treaty. They can't just..." A blinding flash of light cut him off. The windows of their home shattered, and a strange humming filled the air. Tom felt himself unable to move, some kind of stasis field. Through the window, he could see the same happening across the colony. People frozen in place, looks of terror on their faces. The Vex ships landed in the colony center. Tall, gray figures emerged from the ships. They moved with purpose, checking homes and buildings. Tom struggled against the invisible force holding him, but couldn't move an inch. He could only watch. Emma whimpered beside him, also caught in the field but able to make small sounds. "Daddy, I'm scared." "It's going to be okay, sweetheart," Tom said, though he had no idea if that was true. The door to their home crashed open. 2 Vex entered, their 4 black eyes surveying the room coldly. One pointed a device at Emma. "Suitable subject," it said in a flat voice. "Age and development optimal. Don't you touch her," Tom shouted, still unable to move. "We have a treaty." The Vex ignored him. One of them approached Emma and placed a small disc on her forehead. She slumped immediately, unconscious. "No," Lisa screamed. The Vex picked up Emma's limp body and carried her out. Tom fought with every ounce of his strength against the stasis field, but it held firm. Through the window, he could see similar scenes playing out across the colony. The Vex were taking children, only children, from their homes. After what seemed like hours but was probably only minutes, the stasis field suddenly dropped. Tom fell forward, catching himself on the table. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside, but it was too late. The Vex ships were already lifting off, taking their precious cargo with them. The colony's central communication tower had been damaged, but not destroyed. Tom sprinted toward it, joining other desperate parents who had the same idea. The colony's administrator, an older man named James, was already trying to send a distress signal. "They took 12 children," he said, voice shaking with rage and fear, including Emma. "I'm sorry, Tom." Tom pushed past him and grabbed the communication controls. As a former military engineer, he knew exactly how to boost the signal to reach Earth faster. "This is Horizon Colony," he transmitted. "We are under attack by Vex forces. They have abducted 12 of our children, ages 6 to 10. Request immediate assistance. Repeat, Vex have taken our children. As he worked, a message appeared on all screens in the colony. It showed a Vex face, one Tom recognized from news reports about the treaty signing 3 years ago, Ambassador Kron. People of Horizon Colony, the message said, we have collected specimens for study. Your young ones will be returned once our research is complete. Do not attempt rescue or retaliation. This is a scientific mission only. The message ended, leaving stunned silence behind. Specimens, Lisa whispered, having followed Tom to the communication tower. They called our children specimens. Tom's hands clenched into fists. He had seen what the Vex ships could do, knew the kind of weapons they had. The colony had nothing that could chase them, nothing that could fight them. But he also knew something the Vex apparently didn't understand, what humans were capable of when their children were threatened. I will find her, Tom promised, pulling Lisa close. I don't care what it takes. I don't care if I have to build a ship myself. I will find Emma and bring her home. In orbit around Horizon, Kron watched the colony through the ship's sensors. The humans were sending distress signals as expected. It would take days for those signals to reach Earth, and days more for any help to arrive. By then, the research would be well underway. Begin preliminary testing on the specimens, Kron ordered. I want to know everything about how human young respond to stress and fear. What Kron failed to understand was that the Vex had just crossed the one line humans had explicitly warned them never to cross. They were about to learn exactly what that meant. Commander Jack Miller was in the middle of a routine briefing when the emergency alert sounded. He rushed to the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, where officers were gathered around the main screen. Report, he ordered, stepping into the room. Admiral Wilson looked up, her face grim. We just received a distress signal from Horizon Colony. The Vex attacked them 3 days ago. They've taken children, Jack. 12 of them. Miller felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Taken children. Are you certain? The message is clear, Wilson said, playing the recording. Tom Green's desperate voice filled the room, describing the abduction of his daughter and 11 other children. Those gray-skinned monsters, Miller muttered. I warned them. I specifically warned them about harming our children. He turned to the communications officer. Get me a direct line to the Vex Council. Now. While they worked to establish communication, Miller studied the report from Horizon. The Vex had used stasis technology to immobilize the colonists, then systematically collected children between the ages of 6 and 10. They had damaged communication equipment but caused no other destruction. Sir, we have a connection to the Vex, announced the communications officer. The screen flickered, and Ambassador Kron's face appeared. Miller had to control his anger at the sight of those 4 black eyes, so cold and emotionless. Commander Miller, said Kron, showing no surprise. We anticipated your call. You've violated our treaty, Miller said, keeping his voice level with effort. Return the children you took from Horizon immediately. There is no need for alarm, Kron replied. This is a simple scientific study. The specimens will be returned once our research is complete. Specimens. Miller felt his face grow hot. Those are children, Ambassador. Human children. Return them unharmed within 48 hours, or there will be consequences. Kron's face showed no reaction. Your emotional response is noted but unnecessary. Our research requires approximately 30 of your Earth days. The young ones will be returned at that time. 48 hours, Miller repeated. That's our only offer. Or what, Commander? Kron's voice had a hint of amusement now. Your ships cannot match our speed. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. We have studied your military capabilities extensively. You think you know what humans are capable of. Miller leaned closer to the screen. You have no idea what you've done by taking our children. 48 hours, Ambassador. After that, you'll understand exactly what it means to face humanity's wrath. Miller cut the connection before Cron could respond. He turned to Admiral Wilson. "Activate the Prometheus protocol." Wilson's eyes widened. "Are you sure? That's our last resort option. They've taken children. Admiral, there is no greater offense. Begin the preparations." Across the room, officers were already moving with new purpose. The Prometheus protocol was a contingency plan developed after first contact with alien species. It detailed the full deployment of humanity's true military capabilities, technologies and weapons that had been kept hidden from all alien observers. "And get me everything we have on Tom Green from Horizon Colony," Miller added. His daughter Emma was among those taken. On the colony supply ship Merchant, Tom Green sat quietly in a storage compartment. 3 days earlier, he had bribed a cargo handler to smuggle him aboard. The ship was scheduled to deliver supplies to the Earth Defense Fleet outpost, and from there, Tom had a plan to reach Vex space. He looked at the small photo of Emma he carried, her bright smile, her innocent eyes. "I'm coming, sweetheart," he whispered. The ship's engines changed tone, signaling they were approaching their destination. Tom prepared to move. As a former military engineer, he knew exactly how these ships were laid out. He slipped out of the storage compartment and made his way toward the shuttle bay. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. Tom froze, thinking he'd been discovered. But the announcement that followed had nothing to do with him. "All personnel, this is the captain. We've received emergency orders to dock with EDF Command Ship Defender. Prometheus protocol has been activated. This is not a drill." Tom felt a chill. During his military service, he had heard rumors about the Prometheus protocol, a plan for full-scale war that would reveal weapons and technologies kept secret even from Earth's own citizens. If that protocol was active, it could only mean one thing: Earth was going to war with the Vex. In the Vex research facility, Emma Green sat huddled in a corner of her cell. The room was small and white, with strange lights that never turned off. There was a bed that wasn't really a bed, more like a shelf attached to the wall, and a small toilet-like thing that flushed automatically. Emma wasn't alone. 5 other children were in the same room, all from Horizon Colony. The youngest was 6-year-old Billy, who hadn't stopped crying for his mom, and the oldest was 10-year-old Mark, who kept telling everyone they needed to be brave. The door slid open, and 2 Vex entered. Emma shrank back against the wall. These aliens scared her with their gray skin and 4 black eyes that never blinked. "Subject 7, said one of the Vex, pointing at Emma. "Come for testing." "No," Emma said, shaking her head. "I want to go home." The Vex looked at each other, seeming confused by her refusal. One of them pulled out a small device. "Resistance noted," it said. "Increasing emotional stress will provide valuable data." The device projected an image in the air, Emma's home on Horizon. Then it showed her parents, Tom and Lisa, looking terrified as Vex soldiers approached them. "No," Emma cried. "Don't hurt them." "Fascinating," said the Vex. "Subject shows more distress for parent units than for self. Confirm previous hypothesis about human young." The second Vex approached Emma. "If you resist, your parent units will be collected for study as well. Comply, and they remain unharmed." Emma stood up, her small hands balled into fists. "My dad was in the military," she said. "He's going to come for me, and he's going to be really, really mad at you." The Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Human young show interesting imagination. Your father has no means to reach this facility. Now come." Emma followed, not because she believed their threats, but because she remembered what her dad had once told her. "If bad people ever take you somewhere, pay attention to everything you see. It might help you escape, or help others find you." So she looked carefully at every corridor, every door, every Vex they passed. She counted her steps and remembered which way they turned. The Vex didn't seem to think she was smart enough to do this. They brought her to a room filled with strange equipment. Other Vex in different colored clothing waited there. "Begin emotional response testing," ordered one. As they attached sensors to her arms, Emma thought about her dad. He would come for her. She was sure of it. And when he did, these aliens would be sorry they ever took her away from home. On Earth, Miller stood before the World Council, the emergency governing body for all human colonies. "The Vex have left us no choice," he said. "They were warned. They took our children anyway. I've activated the Prometheus Protocol." "The consequences will be severe," said one council member. "A full-scale conflict with the Vex will cost many lives." "And what is the cost of doing nothing?" Miller asked. "What message does that send to every other species in the galaxy? That they can take our children without consequences? No, the Vex crossed the one line we clearly drew. Now they'll learn exactly what that means." The vote was unanimous. Earth would go to war. As Miller left the chamber, an aide approached him. "Sir, we've received a report. Tom Green, father of one of the abducted children, has gone missing from Horizon Colony. He's believed to have stowed away on a supply ship." Miller smiled grimly. "He's going after his daughter. Good. Make sure our forces know about him. When we attack, I want that man found and helped, not hindered." The Vex had no idea what was coming for them. They were about to face the full fury of a species that would do anything, absolutely anything, to protect its children. The 48-hour deadline passed with no word from the Vex. On the bridge of the Defender, now the command ship for Earth's assembled fleet, Commander Miller watched the countdown reach 0. "They've made their choice," he said quietly. He turned to Admiral Wilson. "Launch the Prometheus ships. From hidden bases on Mars, Jupiter's moons, and deep space stations, vessels unlike any seen before emerge." They were sleek, black, and much smaller than regular human battleships. For decades, Earth had been developing these ships in secret, equipped with technology far beyond what they had shared with any alien species. "All Prometheus vessels report ready, sir," said the tactical officer. Miller nodded. "Transmit jump coordinates to all ships. We strike directly at the heart of Vex space." The assembled fleet of over 200 ships, most of which had never been seen by non-human eyes, prepared for faster-than-light travel. Their destination, the Vex homeworld. "They think they know what humans are capable of," Miller said to Wilson as the countdown for the jump began. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." Tom Green had managed to transfer from the supply ship to a small scout vessel. Using skills from his military days, he had reprogrammed the ship's computer to accept his commands. Now he flew through Vex space, following the tracking device he had built. Before leaving Horizon, Tom had analyzed the energy signature of the Vex ships. Every vessel left a unique trail in space, and he had designed a device to follow it. The trail led to a large space station orbiting a red dwarf star. According to the ship's computer, this was a Vex research facility. "Hold on, Emma," he whispered. "Dad's coming." The scout ship was small enough to avoid detection as Tom approached the station. He found a maintenance dock on the far side, away from the main entrances. Using the ship's tools, he cut through the outer door and slipped inside. The corridors were empty. Tom moved quickly but carefully, using his homemade scanner to detect life signs. His military training came back to him as he avoided security sensors and cameras. After 20 minutes of searching, the scanner picked up readings that could only be human children. They were being held on the lower level of the station. Tom made his way down, his heart pounding with both fear and hope. In the testing room, Emma sat with sensors attached to her arms and head. The Vex had been showing her pictures and videos, measuring her reactions. Subject shows strong emotional response to images of parent units in danger, noted one Vex researcher. Confirmed that human young prioritize family safety over personal comfort. "What is purpose of this attachment?" asked another Vex. "It seems inefficient." "Unknown. Perhaps evolutionary advantage in primitive environments." Emma tried to ignore their talking. She had been counting the days since her capture. This was the 5th day. The Vex thought she couldn't understand their plans, but she listened carefully to everything they said. "Tomorrow we begin Phase 2 testing," said the lead researcher. "Isolation effects on human young." That sounded bad. Emma didn't want to be alone. She already missed the other kids from Horizon, who were being held in different rooms. Suddenly, alarms began to sound throughout the station. The Vex researchers looked up in confusion. "Security breach in Sector 7, announced a voice over the station speakers. "All research personnel evacuate to safe areas." The Vex hurried from the room, leaving Emma alone with the sensors still attached to her. She quickly pulled them off and ran to the door. It was locked, but through the small window, she could see Vex running in the corridor, looking panicked. Something was happening. Something big. On the Vex homeworld, Ambassador Kron stood before the High Council, reporting on the human ultimatum. "Their deadline has passed," Kron said. "As expected, they have done nothing. Their threats were empty, as our intelligence suggested." The lead counselor nodded. "The research data from the human young is valuable. Their emotional attachments make them unique among species we have studied." An aide rushed into the chamber, his gray face showing signs of agitation. "A rare emotion for a Vex. High Council, we have detected a massive energy spike at the edge of our system," the aide reported. "Multiple ships have appeared. They are human vessels, but they do not match any known human ship design in our database." "Impossible," said Kron. "Human ships cannot reach our system this quickly. Their faster-than-light technology is inferior to ours." The chamber's main screen activated, showing a fleet of sleek, black ships approaching the Vex defense line. They moved with incredible speed, easily avoiding the Vex defensive fire. "They hid their true capabilities from us," the lead counselor realized. "Activate all defenses. This is not the human response we anticipated." On the research station, Tom found the cell block where the children were being held. 6 doors, each with a small window showing a child inside. He spotted Emma in the 3rd cell. "Emma," he called, working to override the door lock. Emma's face lit up with joy when she saw him. "Dad, I knew you'd come. I told them you would." The door slid open, and Emma flew into his arms. Tom hugged her tightly, fighting back tears. "We need to get the others," Emma said immediately. "There are 11 more kids here." Tom nodded. "Show me where." With Emma's help, Tom freed the other children from Horizon Colony. As they gathered in the corridor, he tried to figure out their next move. His small scout ship couldn't carry 13 people. "We need to find a bigger ship," he told the children. "Stay close together and follow me." As they moved through the station, more alarms began to sound. "Warning. Human fleet detected in Vex space. All personnel to battle stations." Tom smiled grimly. Earth had come for its children, just as he had. On the Defender, Miller watched as the first wave of Prometheus ships engaged the Vex defense fleet. The new human vessels moved with incredible speed, their advanced weapons cutting through Vex shields like they weren't even there. "Sir, we've detected human life signs on the research station in Sector 4, reported the sensor officer. Miller leaned forward. "How many?" 13, sir. 12 children and 1 adult. Tom Green, Miller said with certainty. He found them before we did. He turned to Wilson. "Send a strike team to that station. I want those children rescued, and that man brought safely to the fleet." On the main screen, they watched as Vex ships fell one after another to Earth's hidden fleet. The Vex had never seen Earth's true military might. Like many before them, they had mistaken human restraint for weakness. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Vex High Council," announced the communications officer. "On screen," Miller ordered. The lead Vex counselor appeared, his normally emotionless face showing clear signs of distress. "Commander Miller, we wish to discuss terms," the counselor said. "This attack is unnecessary. The research subjects would have been returned as promised." "Those research subjects are children," Miller replied coldly. "You were warned. The time for discussion has passed." We did not understand the significance, the counselor insisted. We offer immediate return of all human young and formal apologies. Miller's expression remained hard. Too late. The Prometheus Protocol is in effect. You will surrender unconditionally, or we will continue until there is nothing left of your fleet. As if to emphasize his point, another Vex battleship exploded on the screen behind him. For the first time in recorded history, a Vex showed fear. We surrender, the counselor said. Please, stop your attack. Miller nodded. All ships, ceasefire. He leaned toward the screen. Now about those children. Miller smiled. That's exactly why you're getting a medal, Tom. You showed the galaxy what humans are willing to do for their children. You infiltrated a Vex facility with nothing but homemade tools and determination. That's the kind of courage we want the galaxy to know about. The ceremony began, with the world president presenting medals to Miller, Tom, and several others who had played key roles in the rescue. Emma watched proudly as her father received his award. Afterward, at the reception, representatives from 7 different alien species approached Miller. They had all come to establish formal relations with Earth after hearing about the defeat of the Vex. Your species is impressive, said one ambassador, a tall, bird-like being. We had no idea humans possessed such technology or resolve. We prefer peace, Miller replied. But there are some lines that should never be crossed. 6 months later, life on Horizon Colony had returned to normal. Tom and Lisa sat on their porch, watching Emma play with her friends in the central green area. The children showed no lasting trauma from their ordeal, bouncing back with the resilience only children seem to possess. She's doing so well, Lisa said, leaning against Tom's shoulder. Tom nodded. Kids are stronger than we give them credit for. In orbit above Horizon, a small defense platform now stood guard. A gift from Earth Defense Fleet to ensure nothing like the abduction would ever happen again. Similar platforms now protected every human colony, visible reminders of Earth's commitment to its most precious citizens. Emma looked up from her game and waved at her parents. She had become something of a celebrity among the children, telling exciting stories about her adventure in space and how her dad had rescued her from the aliens. Some parts of her story seemed far-fetched, like how she had memorized the layout of the Vex station or understood their research plans. But the truth was, Emma had provided valuable intelligence that helped Earth understand Vex technology and culture. She's going to join the fleet when she grows up, you know, Tom said with a smile. She's already decided. Lisa laughed, like father, like daughter. Across the galaxy, word had spread about what happened to the Vex. The story grew with each telling. How humans had hidden their true power, how they had unleashed devastating weapons when their children were threatened, how one father had invaded a Vex station alone to save his daughter. Other species now approached human colonies with careful respect, especially when children were present. The message was clear and would be remembered for generations to come. Humans might be peaceful explorers and traders. They might seek friendship and cooperation, but harm their children, and they would stop at nothing to protect them. We warned them. They didn't listen, and they would never make that mistake again.